This illness has impacted my family, my friends. It's impacted the people that I work with, the people that I work for.
This virus mutates and changes, and it requires a very vigorous immune response.
It is one of the most well-kept secrets in the United States.
It's a very crucial time right now. It's very important that people know about this disease.
And sometimes you do feel alone. You do. I mean, you can't help it. You know you're not.
It is a scandal that has yet to break. It is a scandal that the American people don't yet understand, but it is a scandal that rivals Watergate, Iran-Contra, or any other government scandal you want to talk about.
At 6 years old, life through a child's eyes reflects a world of infinite opportunities, where anything is possible with the help of imagination. I was lucky. I had a rich childhood filled with abundance and joy. Everything else was grown-up stuff. It was all just pretend. The operation I had, it was just pretend. All the kids were getting their tonsils out back then. It was considered routine. But in my case, something went terribly wrong. After emergency surgery, I saw lots of doctors standing above me, talking about me like I wasn't there. The transfusion they gave me saved my life, yet contaminated me with a silent intruder. My illness was a pretend illness. No one knew it existed. I, like so many others, was destined to face this illness much later in life. Now all grown up, my reality is one plagued by hepatitis C, the silent epidemic. Hepatitis means inflammation of the liver. The most commonly known strains of hepatitis are types A and B, for which there is now a preventative combination vaccine. Hepatitis C was officially named in 1989 after researchers discovered the antibody for the virus. Until then, it was referred to as hepatitis non-A, non-B. In essence, hepatitis C is a blood-borne virus that attacks and destroys the liver. At first, scar tissue called fibrosis forms, which can then lead to cirrhosis of the liver and, over time, liver cancer. The damage is irreversible, and unfortunately, there's no cure. The virus is contracted through direct contact with infected blood. This includes blood transfusions and blood products, tattoos and body piercings, sharing needles, cocaine straws, razors, and toothbrushes, sexual intercourse where blood is involved, and possibly childbirth.
Hepatitis C is an epidemic, but it's an epidemic of awareness. The big epidemic actually took place 20 to 30 years ago. So what we actually have is an epidemic of cirrhosis and liver failure and dysfunction related to hepatitis C.
Probably more than 50% of people who have hepatitis C over time may develop liver cirrhosis, and more than 20% will eventually develop liver cancer. So to get from hepatitis C initially to liver cirrhosis, it takes probably 20 to 25 years, and then probably another 5 or 10 years to develop liver cancer.
The numbers of hepatitis C patients and the risk of death will exceed HIV within just a few years. Knowing that there are nearly 5 million people with hepatitis C, that means we're talking about death rates that may approach 400,000 or 600,000 people in the next decade or so. Hepatitis C manifests itself not just as liver damage, but as aches and pains and mental cloudiness, progressive liver disease to cirrhosis, nutrition problems.
I noticed that alcohol made me very sleepy and feeling sickly, very under par. I didn't understand what that was. Eating chocolate made me want to throw up. I was confused in my thinking, and I couldn't remember what I just said.
I had symptoms of extreme fatigue. I was always tired. I had a lot of stomach problems, blood sugar problems. I had lost a lot of weight. So when I started doing research and reading books and trying to understand what this disease is and what the symptoms are, I said, this is it. This is why I've been feeling like this for all these years. This is what's going on with me.
In August of 1995, I had my annual physical, and my primary care physician called me up, and she said to me, "You have hepatitis." And I said, "Okay. What kind of hepatitis do I have?" And she said, "You have the kind that's going to kill you."
I'm a person with hemophilia, HIV, and hepatitis C. I was Baxter Highland's guinea pig for the first Factor VIII clinical trials in 1968. My father and I decided that if this jump from whole plasma to what they call factor concentrates was going to be kind of the brave new world for hemophilia, that it was okay to use me as a guinea pig. In discovery and litigation, we've since found the records of those clinical trials, and the primary investigator listed that they suspected they'd given me hepatitis. So I was all probability given hepatitis C in 1968, and then HIV in the 1980s.
In 1984, because of a tubal ligation, I guess I lost a great deal of blood. And they must have given me plasma or a blood transfusion. That's where we think it happened.
Hepatitis C came into my life maybe, could have been 1979. It could have been anywhere from 1979 to 1990. Probably because of my lifestyle. I did not get it from a blood transfusion because I've never had a blood transfusion. But my lifestyle was pretty wild and free, and that is probably the way I contracted.
When I found out I was diagnosed with hepatitis C, I didn't know how to react at all. I wasn't even sure I knew what it was. And my doctor finally said to me, without me doing any type of conventional treatment whatsoever, he gave me 10 years to live.
My doctor sent me to another doctor, and he says, "There's no point doing anything at your age. You're going to die anyway in a few years. Why don't you enjoy the last 5 years of your life?" Well, that threw me down a hole.
They said, "You're going to be dead in 5 years." And they told me to get ready for that. And I watched my friends prepare to die. I wasn't going to do that. And I told them that I wasn't about to die, that I was going to walk out of the hospital that day and figure out how to live, not how to die.
Hi. Is that all I get? Hi.
I met Corey Dubin at a hepatitis C conference in Oakland, California in 1999. I was taken with his patient activism and passion for the hemophilia community, who through its dependence on blood products was the first to be infected with both hepatitis C and HIV. A key representative and co-infected himself, Corey unveiled to me the underlying politics surrounding hepatitis C and our healthcare system. He is the founder of a leading organization he created to instill change.
Since the early 1990s, I've been involved with an organization which I now direct called the Committee of 10,000. We represent the 10,000 people with hemophilia infected with HIV through tainted blood, also over 95% hepatitis C infected as well. Out of that simple support function grew a national organization that has passed legislation in Congress to compensate people who were infected due to the regulatory failure of the federal government.
I believe that many people have this and don't know it. If that information all comes out, it won't be 4 million like they say have it. It's probably more like 12 million. I think the medical system is going to have to be prepared to deal with this, and they're not.
Even a bigger scandal probably than AIDS is the hepatitis scandal. For 30 years, this country transmitted hepatitis C in the blood supply and no one did anything about it. They talked about it at conferences. It was on the table. But it wasn't on the table in the society. It wasn't widely discussed because people really didn't want to say what they knew. by the transfusion of hepatitis-carrying blood. The more I get into it, the more it appears that they were bringing a lot of donors in. If we had done what we should have done to screen the blood or screen the donor, we wouldn't be having this problem. We wouldn't be faced with 4 million Americans that we know have hepatitis C, and probably a lot more. If the lessons had been learned, everybody who got hepatitis from a transfusion already would have received notice from the federal government and the blood banks that they had been exposed to hepatitis-contaminated units. One of the things the Cubans are testing now is a therapeutic vaccine for hepatitis C. They're going to be out in front of the United States with a therapeutic vaccine for hepatitis C. In 1995, the Committee of 10,000 demanded a look back. As you trace your records on who donated blood, you notify the recipient that these may have been HCV-contaminated lots. We found out from the Congressional Appropriations Committee staff decided not to seek funding for the program on Capitol Hill. No request was made to do a look back. The real issue is the American Association of Blood Banks, America's Blood Centers, the American Red Cross. They don't want to do this because they think they're going to get sued a lot. And what they're concerned about is liability, not your health, not my health. These people make decisions based on liability and money.
I don't believe that the government knew about hepatitis C earlier than the late 80s. At that point, they were making some major advances in identifying the virus, and I am sure that if they knew about it ahead of time, they certainly would have put it on the market much quicker than they did. But unfortunately, they did not have the data that could prove that this was a good test.
I wouldn't put it completely that way, like nothing has been done, because just screening the blood donors right now for hepatitis C and focusing on this aspect by itself make a huge difference in hepatitis C for the future.
We need to educate the American public about hepatitis C so we can educate them how not to get it, because this is a serious epidemic and it's going to kill a whole lot of people when it's done before they figure out how to stop it. And we should learn something when these things happen, but we don't seem to. In Canada, the minister reacted immediately, developed a compensation program for HCV, but in America, we still debate it. These are the kind of things that we deal with, and so before all 10,000 of us pass away, we're making some significant change. Thank you very much for listening. Have a pleasant week, and come back at us next week for another edition of the Latin American Journal.
Ron Duffy moved many in the hepatitis C community with his empathy and commitment towards educating and helping others. I first heard him speak at a conference in Washington, D.C. in 1998. He always became very emotional when he spoke publicly, especially while explaining how he contracted the virus through a blood transfusion during the Vietnam War. After the death of his friend Beto Perea from hepatitis C, Ron founded the Hepatitis C Global Foundation in his memory.
At that time, I had no idea that we were going to start a foundation for patients with hepatitis C to start to mobilize the public in a way that the epidemic could be taken seriously. And we sat down and we decided that one of the most important things that we were going to do every year was hold a 3-day conference on hepatitis C. We wanted to be able to give patients an opportunity to see a bigger picture. That is the direction that my foundation has gone in and will continue to go in. Being the lone wolf or being one of the few people who aren't afraid to stand up and speak out is not an easy job. If we could unite as one, we could be a very powerful political force. We could make some serious changes happen.
So far, the only available Western treatments for hepatitis C include various types of an injectable drug called interferon and antiviral pills known as ribavirin. However, there are still a large number of patients that do not respond to the treatment, and most all suffer debilitating side effects.
There are two choices for managing hepatitis C. There's holistic, the Eastern approach, but I believe that acupuncture, herbal remedies really are used to control symptoms. Western therapy is focused at killing the virus, but during therapy they have fevers, chills, sweats, irritability, depression, weight loss. But we can actually get rid of this virus now in up to 30% of patients, if you want just a general number, using either combination therapy or very aggressive interferon therapy alone.
During the whole 6 months that I was on the interferon, that was the only time when I had a rough period. I never missed a day of work the whole time, but I was awful sick. And at the end of that time, of course, it didn't work for me.
I just went through 6 months of interferon treatment. It was called PEG-Entron 2B. It's a pegylated interferon and Rebitol pills. The side effects were fairly debilitating. I had to slow down, I had to take it easy. I worked through the whole treatments. I played, not as much as I usually would have. Now I am negative. I feel better than I did before. I don't have the fatigue, and that's fantastic.
You know what you said, Kendra, about your doctor saying it was hopeless for you? My doctor told me to because of my age.
Exactly.
And damn, he made me mad.
That's right.
Now, for my age, I'm a strong, light, agile woman. You've no right to talk to me
That's
like
right. I
that.
agree.
Yeah.
I
Well,
agree.
see,
Isa Graves and her husband Robert are a special couple. When we first met, it was at a hepatitis C seminar on transmission. At that time, Isa, a retired school teacher and an artist, had recently been diagnosed with hepatitis C and had cirrhosis of the liver.
hello. Hi. How are you? Nice to see you.
It's good to see you. Yeah.
And something smells wonderful.
Herbs and vitamin supplements were her chosen course of treatment. Unfortunately, those remedies proved more harmful to Isa, and she was forced to undergo treatment using Infragen, a type of interferon.
While on Infragen, I hallucinated. It had such a terrible chemical effect on my system that I was hysterical, crying all the time.
I remember that in the case of her first injection, she had quite a wild reaction. Her temperature spiked at about 104. So my role was to try to be the objective observer and to deal with the symptoms as they came up. When the doctor decided to discontinue the treatment, Isa at first was very disappointed. She thought that she had in some way failed the treatment. In fact, when we had the follow-up discussions with her doctor, he indicated that he believed that she had benefited from the 12 weeks of Infragen that she'd been on, and there was no reason to continue it. Since then, she's been able to devote more time to her sculpture than she had before, with less occasions when she's extremely fatigued. And my perception is that her quality of life has improved since she's been off of the treatment.
Art is a gift. It helps you out of everything. It's good for the mind and the soul. And I'm using it now for my health. I feel that I'm using my fears and anxieties in a positive way, rather than to brood over what could happen to me. So I'm going to make the most, and if I can be a positive force and help people to look towards something that takes their mind away from what's happening in their bodies, something they can't stop. It's irrevocably there. That's the worst part of this disease. It's silently there.
A characteristic, I think, of a lot of the people that have contracted hepatitis C is that they're very angry. And I've tried to help Isa deal with her anger. I try to encourage her to take it one day at a time.
I think. I loved it. Yeah, I liked it. I do women because they're a part of me. Each of the women carries some part of me. The poet, the devastated woman, the street lady, my colonial lady, altruistic. Even if they don't have HCV, I see them protecting me now.
The emotional distress that I have felt personally, I've dealt with by doing things that have always worked for me in the past. Walking on the beach, it gives me an opportunity to think constructively about life in general, as well as the problem of Isa having the hepatitis. I don't really do it to get away from her. I would prefer that Isa be with me as I'm walking on the beach.
A friend of mine first gave me the idea to do a documentary on hepatitis C. As a filmmaker, ironically, I don't think that I would have come to the decision to do this project on my own. But after listening to the suggestion of a patient that I take on the task, once I began the journey, I knew I had to follow it to the end. Still, dealing with something so personal and life-threatening made it more difficult. Working on this documentary has been in a way like soul-searching, about finding my purpose here. Living with an illness like hepatitis C puts into perspective your own mortality and forces you to go inside yourself. I realized that I was meant to do something, not just for myself, but for those who've either lost the battle with hepatitis C or who need a voice. I've met a lot of people through this experience, and I will always be grateful for their story.
When I found out I had this disease, I was completely lost. I felt like the ground had just been pulled out from underneath me. I saw what it was doing to my mother. She totally blamed herself. She's like, my God, if I didn't have them do this blood transfusion on you, maybe you wouldn't have this disease. I tell her, Mom, you can't blame yourself. You know, we'll find a way through this together, we will.
People who don't have this don't understand. And you can't talk about it with them because it's beyond their comprehension why you get sad, why you feel nothing really matters. Because this is a lonely thing. You're by yourself in the wilderness of medical maze. Shall I go holistic? Shall I go to the clinic? Shall I go to this new research? Who knows?
You know, the education is starting to get out there. Anybody who finds out they have a serious disease goes through the process of denial, anger, sadness, despair, and then you have to accept it. And then you have to decide, how am I going to live with it?
I do need to extend a hand to people who have this illness so that I don't feel alone. Because there is a deep aloneness. I'm separate from everybody.
A fever is what you don't want to have. A temperature is good.
I have 3 beautiful daughters. I have a great partner, wife. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I have a support system that has allowed me to do the work I've done.
My wife and my son, it's not easy for them to be a part of this whole process. But without them, it won't work either because you have got to have someone available.
I have had the good fortune to have very supportive friends, coworkers. My mother has always been there for me, and that's what's important to me. My father died of melanoma. That's probably affected me psychologically more than anything else when I found out I had this disease, because I saw what the treatments did to him. My chosen path is natural therapies, acupuncture, and I seem to be having success with that path.
Acupuncture works, from our traditional Chinese medicine viewpoint, on stimulating qi. Qi is basically life energy, and so we can change the way the body works just through putting a few needles in a few points to allow the qi to move out, to come in, to move to other places, and to evenly flow through the body. Acupuncture has an anti-inflammatory effect. It helps the body's tissues to not respond as strongly to the virus.
The most important information we've gotten from herbal therapies is their anti-inflammatory properties. The antiviral properties of herbal remedies, Eastern remedies, has not been proven to a very good level yet. And it's very rare when you give somebody an herb that the viral level falls significantly. But they do feel better, they think better, they're more functional.
The difference between Eastern medicine and, I would call it traditional medicine or Western medicine, is the things that we use here and we do are based on true results that show difference in this kind of treatment versus that kind of treatment. While when we go to something like herbal medicine, they're not necessarily based on results or studies. I mean, it's very hard to really value their true benefit to the patient.
Oh, okay.
That's a very good, glass of hot water.
As an addition to my healing routine, I've sought the help of Tibetan doctor Lobsang Dongdup. A renowned medical doctor in Tibet, an exam from him involves analyzing my pulse to determine an herbal formula for me he modifies as my body changes. Combined with diet, acupuncture, and meditation, I now feel better than I've felt in years.
For some, they've made the choice to go the interferon route. I have made choices to treat both my HIV and my hepatitis C through Chinese medicine. My own feeling is the drugs that are out there for HIV and for HCV represent too much toxicity, that I've got to find ways that will go after these viruses and strengthen my immune without introducing all this toxicity into my system.
I think that the problem in hepatitis specifically is that many doctors who work with people with hepatitis know that there's a liver toxicity from a lot of different substances and are very nervous about that, whether it's drugs or herbs. Also, with the lack of research in the United States on herbal medicine or nutritional supplements, a lot of people don't want to use things that haven't been tested.
We were not trained for acupuncture. We were never trained in herbal therapies. We were never trained in any type of Chinese medicine. So a defensive position is often taken. Well, since I don't know about this, it's probably not good. But that's not a good attitude. So blending Eastern and Western medicine together, I think, is very important. Respect each other's roles in this. Recognize the power of each of these therapies.
You might use the bigger needle as well.
I think that there's a place for all medicine in the healing process. So Western medicine, natural therapies, I don't use the word alternative medicine. And if we think about China, in China, what's alternative? Western medicine is the alternative medicine. And so when we have a comprehensive approach to a healing process, that we can use various forms of medicines at different times.
There's a lot of research going on at this point, and we're very, very hopeful that in the next few years that we will have much more effective, less costly treatments. Fortunately, hepatitis C is a very, very slowly progressing disease, so many patients have time on their side.
Part of the abdomen, people have cirrhosis.
Right now there's over 150 patents out for hepatitis C drugs. I think in 5 years we'll be able to cure 70% of patients. The first step is prevention. Educate people, needle exchange programs, a clean blood supply, preventing transmission from infected people.
And it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, I think we are in the right direction. I mean, if people like yourself and myself and everybody keep doing some awareness in his community, sooner or later people will know more about it.
Creating awareness and educating people about hepatitis C is for some a lifestyle. For others, it's a crusade. When I first saw Kelly Zerbis and her band Kelly's Lot perform, I was impressed by her approach to music as well as using her talent to create awareness for hepatitis C.
No, it's good.
Let the music
years ago, I was using Kelly's Lot to help raise money for a friend of mine who was sick. She had cancer. And that whole thing of using music to help charity was like, it just hit me. I loved it. And same time, a friend of mine contacted me named Joya who had hepatitis C. And after she passed away, I just became even more into raising awareness of hepatitis C.
I'm only human, I'm only human.
Kelly's Lot does a lot of gigs in LA. We play, a lot of the clubs, and we always try to bring in the hepatitis C awareness cause to whatever we do. We provide information with people at the gigs. So it seems like that's all we do is hepatitis C awareness with my music, but we're already doing music, so we might as well add the awareness to it.
Are you hip to hep? MC, yes. You can get hip to hep over there at that table over there with lots of information.
We just did a tour from LA to Boston, and I actually ran the Boston Marathon at the end of the tour, all for hepatitis C awareness.
I don't understand life, that's for sure. I don't understand.
I met a gentleman who has hepatitis C, and he hasn't told his family, he hasn't told anybody. But I want people to not feel embarrassed that they have hepatitis C, to help erase a stigma, the stigma that we have on hep C. So the only way you're going to erase the stigma is make people aware.
What I'm doing to help spread the word or an awareness of hepatitis C, I'm playing concerts with Kelly's Lot, and also on my own. I have my own monthly show that I will have literature there, and I talk about it, that I'm negative hepatitis C, that there is treatment out there, and that everyone should get tested if they feel they're at risk.
I mean, 1% out of 50 Americans has hepatitis C, and there's a lot of ways you can contract it, not just through blood transfusion.
When people don't know what it is, and they're not afraid, they ask questions like, how do you get it? Is it airborne? Is it food? Whatever kind of hepatitis it is, I have to explain that it's blood to blood, and that they can't get it from me, and that's okay. Other people kind of just don't say anything. So I figure that's just fear, and that's okay. But I think silence is deadly when it comes to these things.
And I've met many people who haven't told their families or their friends that they have hep C, and they've been living with it for years.
I think about Joya a lot. I think about Joya before a gig and after a gig, and I know that she's looking down on me, and she would have probably done better. She probably would have done more if she was still here.
See the light, and it's bright. Thank you.
You wouldn't have been able to get out of bed this morning if it hadn't been for your liver feeding you back some of the energy that it stored from the meal you ate last night.
Thelma King Thiel is founder and CEO of the Hepatitis Foundation International. Thelma's dedication lies in educating the public on hepatitis C and liver wellness. She is one of the most hardworking advocates I know, as she continues a very personal crusade in memory of her youngest son, Dean.
Well, 35 years ago, I had an infant, and we found that as soon as my son was born, that he had cirrhosis of the liver from a disease called biliary atresia, and at that point they gave us no hope that he would live. When he died, I decided that I wanted to do something about other people who may be going through this. Our walk on Washington gave patients an opportunity to go up to the Hill and to meet with their legislative representatives, to put a face on hepatitis C and to express some of their concerns about the lack of effective treatment.
I had hepatitis C, I got it in Vietnam.
Diagnosed 1 year ago, and it was like running up to a brick wall.
There's a lot of politics in any kind of medicine, and we try to be as balanced as we possibly can to promote things that are going to help the patients and to help prevent this and bring these diseases under control.
And you just have
Be as knowledgeable as you can to protect yourself and your family.
Drinking alcohol can accelerate the disease process in hepatitis C. Our education programs on hepatitis C, I have never seen so many tattoos in my life, and I thought, I just have to tell them that there's the potential that they may have been infected with hepatitis C virus so that they can stop drinking to protect themselves and not to accelerate the disease anymore. That's number one. And number two, they can at least get tested to find out where they are in the disease and if they should be treated.
To look for these veins.
The frustration is that when people don't know that they've had this disease and that they're end-stage liver disease and there is nothing that can be done for them and there aren't enough organs, that's the tragedy.
I have a number of friends who have received transplants. I was just recently transplanted myself, and so fortunately I was able to get with Dr. Robert Gish, someone that I already knew, and that was a turning point for me.
The person in the United States waits an average of 1.5 years for a liver transplant today. Our liver transplant center has performed over 800 liver transplants since 1988, but right now more than half of the patients are being transplanted for hepatitis C.
Currently, they have probably close to 19,000 patients waiting for liver transplantation, but you have about only 5,000 cadaveric organ available per year. So right there you have a huge discrepancy.
We have a scoring system, and actually it starts from 0 to 15. First off, a person has to have either cirrhosis or the liver has to quit working suddenly. Those are all factors that we look at and we score up points. And once a person has 7 points, and then they're on the list, and as they progress, we're more likely to accelerate their transplant timing. In other words, they move up the list.
There's only a certain amount of organs that come available every year. And how do we decide who gets those organs? A tremendous burden is being put on the physicians who work in liver transplant programs, who sit down and decide who is going to live and who is going to die.
Our group, our committee, is involved in life and death decisions every week. I can't say that we're playing God, but we realize that we're involved in a major way with this process of life versus death. So there's not really a way to set up and share space up there right now.
By the summer of 2002, Isa had developed a malignant tumor in her liver, and her liver function began to fail. After successfully completing a variety of medical exams, Isa made it to the transplant list. On September 26, 2002, she underwent a liver transplant at USC University Hospital in Los Angeles. The new liver was divided between Isa and a small child. When split and transplanted, the liver can regenerate itself and grow to its full size within 6 weeks. Isa did amazingly well and had no complications.
Currently, in standard medical care, we look at the physiological age, not the chronological age. It means you have somebody who's 75 or 72, like Isabella, for example, but she's completely functional. She's independent, she's very smart. She looks physiologically like somebody who's 50 or 60. That's what counts.
They said my overall health is excellent. There's nothing else wrong with me.
In Isabella's situation, both her liver cancer and her liver function, which were very bad, gave her a notch on the waiting list. And that's the reason she received a liver transplant so early. Actually, she underwent chemotherapy prior to transplantation. So we started doing the treatment for cancer, and then she was transplanted.
I've been so happy, I can't believe it. I mean, here I was hurting and all of that sort of thing. And yet, I just was happy because I'm getting another chance at life. Because before, I really honestly, deep in my heart, didn't think I had much of a future. But I just went for it. I just said, okay, I'll find a way.
She's a great person. I mean, she showed me her sculptures. I mean, I do myself oil painting. Actually, I like art also. And she's a very, very talented woman. I mean, she's very nice, very pleasant, and she's full of life. And that's the kind of person that will do well after transplantation.
I really think it's the attitude that you go into it with. If you trust your doctors and you work with them, they'll do everything they can for you. So I just had carte blanche because I was going to die anyway. I mean, what's the difference, you know? I die happy with you people trying to help me. That's better than dying stuck and splendid, you know? So it is 90% your attitude. And I want to tell other people that this doesn't have to be so frightening. And actually, it wasn't that terrible because they made it so comfortable for me to feel there was hope and that I was worth saving. That's a gift. That's a gift in itself.
People come with high expectation. Even if they know it's a deadly disease, even if they know the surgery is very high risk, they carries 10% 1-year mortality. But they want to live. They come here to live, not to die.
One of my, my figures I make of women proud and thoughtful and deep, and I'm proud like some of them. And I like myself now. I didn't pull out.
The only difference between hepatitis C and other liver disease that you have always a chance of having recurrent disease following transplantation. Because most of these patients will still have the virus in their body. 10 to 20% of patients will develop liver cirrhosis within 5 years following transplantation for hepatitis C. And right now, for example, we're conducting clinical research project to see if changing the immunosuppressant have any impact on the severity and the risk of hepatitis C recurrence following liver transplantation.
The data they're going to get from this will have long-range good effects. And that'll be my gift to come up with some very great alternatives in the future. My gift to them and to other people who are ill. To you.
After 2.5 weeks in the hospital, Isa was able to go home, along with the many medications that will help her body support her new liver. While it's still one fragile day at a time for Isa, as much as she loves life, it's all been worth it.
There is a visitor in my body, but it doesn't mean that I have to die with it. I know that by visualizing a future and wonderful things, that they can happen. What I wish for myself personally is that I hope I can leave something behind, whether it be the art or even this film, so that they will remember me as a person who cared and loved the people and the world.
I think with these diseases, there's also an aspect of how you construct yourself, how you look at yourself and who you are. I'm a person with hemophilia, HIV, and hepatitis C, but I'm also a journalist, a father, a husband, a writer, a health advocate. The very act of self-identification is an act of empowerment.
Perhaps the thing I'm most often quoted as saying is, work like you don't need the money, love like you've never been hurt before, and dance like nobody's watching. And that's what I do.
If it's true that some good can come from something bad, then having this illness has given me a deeper appreciation for life and a better sense of purpose. It motivated me to make this documentary, and in the process, I finally learned to embrace my hepatitis C. I no longer perceive it as a death sentence, but rather as a warning sign to slow down and take better care of myself. I was diagnosed by accident, but now with a test available, people have the responsibility to get tested if they think they are at risk. I am one of the lucky ones. After living with hepatitis C for more than 30 years, my liver appears to be in good shape. I have found a course of treatment that works for me, at least for now. In the meantime, I await a cure, or at least a more effective treatment that will leave behind the side effects and allow me to experience remission.
All the bright lights, they shine when you walk into the room. But the darkness, it covers us all too soon. And I hold my breath every day just to make it through the night. Well, I'll hold on so very, 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 very tight. And I close my eyes if I want to be real, and close my eyes if I want to feel. Close my eyes when I'm looking at you. I close my eyes. I'm always waiting for my own return.